Hello, Align, and welcome to another episode. Today is, I would say, probably one of the most divinely guided or serendipitous. I kind of, in a way, manifested this conversation and would love to first kind of give everyone a little bit of background how we met. And for context, the point of this episode is for everyone to understand the practicality and like the benefits, like practical benefits of manifesting, what that actually means, and taking inspired action. So not doing mindless things and thinking like working hard mindlessly gets you where you want to be. It's really getting the downloads internally and then taking actions based on your intention. So
Mhm.
with that said, Kiana, do you want to kind of share your perspective on the day that you were going to have before we met and then how we met?
Sure. Of course. So thank you for having me on Align. I'm super excited to be here and honored. I think you're working on such an exciting project.
Thank you.
And so I guess, just to start off, I mean, we've known each other for only a few days, which is absolutely crazy because I feel like we've known each other for so much longer.
Yeah.
But actually our encounter was very unique. And so I'm excited to talk about that. Where last week on Saturday, I live in Milan. And so I didn't know what to do with my day. And I felt like I needed to go out, but wasn't really motivated. And I thought about it and I decided that, if I were to go out, I had to go to Tiffany's and go check out one of their specific new collections of their hardware jewelry line. And so I said to myself, you know what? Might as well just go because better than sitting at home and doing nothing. And I got to Tiffany's and there was a lineup. And I was thinking to myself how ridiculous it is. I'm waiting in line just to go see this new collection when, I have no pressure to see it right away or anything. And but I had nothing to do. And I waited and all of a sudden pops out Jessica. And she asked me, "Are you in line to go into Tiffany's?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "I'm in line." And she's like, "Oh, what a bummer. There's a line." And we started talking and discovered that we both wanted to go into the store to see the same item. So I don't know if you want to take over from here, but yeah, I'll leave the floor to you.
Yeah, I that's why I felt like when I met you and we started chatting, I was like, this all makes sense. I was in Milan for like essentially I couldn't get a direct flight, not direct flight. I couldn't connect my flights from Porto Cervo to Milan and Milan to New York. So I had a one night stay. And I honestly was like, okay, I'm so lucky. I love Milan, but at the same time, I really didn't feel safe going out alone as a woman. And, I just don't know how things have been since after COVID. So I was like, let me just have like a low key day. Maybe I won't go out at night. We'll see how I feel. Of course, I went shopping as Americans do when they go to Italy. Hello.
Of
And I was
course.
leaving. I was like leaving the Doma. I was leaving. And I mean, if anyone that knows me knows that like I am not a jewelry person. Like my mom to this day will say, like, Jessica, I can't buy you anything nice because you lose everything. I've lost every diamond she's given me to date. I'm sorry, mom. And I'm pretty lost. Yeah, yep, I lost every piece of jewelry that my sister gave me, and she's gonna find out when she listens to this.
Well, hopefully they don't listen, is what
Right?
I was gonna
I'm like,
say.
this is not the one you will listen to. So I've never, like, again, like, it's not something I care about, but for some reason, I was walking by Tiffany and I was like, I felt called to go and see that specific item as well. And I was like, I just felt called. And I felt kind of like stupid at first. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna end up buying anything. So why am I even going?
Yeah.
And then you were there and you had this like, I mean, I read people's energies and I'm very into like in tune with how people show up. And like you had this like big eyed, like you just like lit up. And I was like, oh, no, I want to stand behind her. And we started chatting. And the crazy
Yeah.
thing, I remember we're talking about where we're from, and you told me you're from Canada. And I
Yep.
just came back from Vancouver. So we were like vibing on.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that was crazy, and we shared like similar stories. So I think like, yeah, we went in together and you were so sweet. You were like, oh, just come in with me, pretend we're friends, so I don't have to like
Yeah.
one. So we
And
had
by then we didn't even know each other's names.
no,
You
I
remember that?
was like, yo,
I
what's
wa- So we literally asked for help. We had someone following us, and then at one point we're like, shit, like she's my friend, but like we don't know each other's names. So what's your name?
Yeah. And then we had like really sweet man who basically like walked us through the collection and we learned so much about diamonds. And the next thing you knew, we spent the whole day together. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really perfect example of, again, I walked into Milan with the intention of, okay, I want to make the most out of one day here. I had no idea what it was going to look like. I was literally on my way back to my hotel. And you had the intention where you're like, okay, this is ridiculous. It's Saturday. I should go out and make the most of it. And then
Yeah.
we found each other.
It's crazy. I
Right?
think, and it was meant to be because we ended up spending the whole day together and could not stop talking. I don't think there was one topic that we didn't touch upon,
Exactly.
and it just kept flowing and flowing and flowing. So yeah, I felt the same energy, and it was weird that we both had that same calling,
Yeah.
but it happened for a reason.
Which is why when you started telling me about your story, I was like, I need you to share this on the platform because I think what happens is that there are people who do the things, which is manifesting and visualizing inspired actions, like you always done, but you never even realize like this is like a powerful tool, right? You didn't even know
Yeah,
this was like a very actually spiritual thing to do. And I
right.
think similar to you, I always growing up had that as well. But I would say maybe in the last couple of years realized, oh, this is a spiritual side to it. There's a lot more
Yeah,
behind just the action behind it. So I think with that said, would love to first kind of talk about like what is manifesting, what is envisioning. And I think people who are new to this are like, oh, it's so like woo woo, it's like so not realistic, right? Manifesting is just as you and I did. We had a
yeah.
or a vision of what we wanted in the future. And we thought to ourselves, okay, what it would feel like to have this thing, would I be doing, would I be wearing if I had this thing that I really wanted. And you just do and become that version of yourself today. That's literally it.
I love that. I think that's key. And just to add to that,
Yeah.
going to Tiffany's was not just going to see the jewelry. I felt very uninspired that day,
Mm,
and I felt like I needed to be in touch. Like I needed something or someone to kind of get me out of that funk and kind of have that boost of inspiration. And I think it was subconscious more than it was intentional. And so when I decided to leave the house, I said to myself, okay, well, nothing is going to happen in the house, so might as well put myself out of my comfort zone, and even if I don't feel like going, go, because more chances of encountering or meeting or being in touch with something that might inspire me.
yeah.
And that was you for that in that day. And it's crazy because it as we met, we started talking a lot more about this topic of manifesting and inspired action. And, I took the action to leave the house. You
Yes.
took the action to go out of your comfort zone in Milan on
Yeah.
your own. You said, okay, before I go to the hotel, I feel like I need to go to Tiffany's.
Yeah.
And so we both had that, and it led us to meeting each other.
Yeah.
So and through our discussion, we discovered that in our lives there was some type of patterns
Yes.
that led us to achieving certain goals because of that feeling initially. So I think it's very relevant, and it's very powerful.
100%. So I think when you shared some of your stories, I would love for you to share with everyone else about, your when you worked at Gucci, how you manifested that. And I really want to highlight what I call like inspired action, right? So
Okay.
would you want to kind of share that story and how you kind of ended up in Gucci?
Sure. So a couple of years ago, I was doing my master's in Florence, and through the degree, I made it a point to apply to many different jobs in Italy because this is where I wanted to stay and gain some more experience. And through the process, it wasn't easy. I kept getting denied from many opportunities, not even having a chance to have interviews. But deep down in my heart, I really believed that I would achieve one thing, and which was my ultimate dream at the time, was to work for an Italian luxury brand, specifically Gucci. And in passing, every time I had mentioned it to, let's say, a mentor, or you could actually to a teacher in university, they told me I was aiming too high, and I should maybe aim lower, and then, step by step, find a way to get there. And in my heart, I didn't believe that. I believed that, I was meant to come to Italy to study luxury, to pursue my master's, and to get a job in one of the best luxury houses, and that was going to be Gucci. And so every day I applied, and let's just say that, you knock on 1,000 doors and one window is about to open in some odd way. And that happened to be meeting this girl who worked in Paris, who was from Montreal, working at a luxury brand, who happened to know someone who was working at Gucci that was from Montreal.
And you're from
And of course. And so having that as a basis of similarity is can be profound, especially when you're in a different environment. And so I actually met with the girl, and I had like, it was more of like trying to understand like what she does at the company, how she got there, and potentially being inspired onto how I can do it myself.
yeah.
And through our discussion discovered that, there might be an opportunity. And um and then from there, I a couple of weeks later, I actually received a call and from Gucci, and they had asked me, can we interview tomorrow? And I said, of course. Very unprepared. I was killing myself to try and figure out any possible question that they could ask me during that interview. And I quickly understood that if I didn't know how to speak Italian in that interview at some point, that I would just shoot myself in the foot. And so what I did was I prepared every single possible question you can ask during an interview, and I also translated it into Italian. And so I went into the interview, I got the call, we did it, everything was going well. And then at the end, she goes, okay, so Kiana, we would like to, can we switch to Italian and see how you do? And I said, no problem. And so she had asked me a question in Italian, and I remember freaking out, not knowing how to answer because I didn't really understand what she was saying. And so I asked her to repeat. And then, anyways, figured out a way to respond, and then proceeded to telling her that, I have to be very honest, I don't speak Italian like an Italian, but I understand more than I can speak. And
Yeah.
if you give me 2 months, that I will be working proficient in the language. And I could swear that I heard her smirk. But I don't think she realized how, determined I was to achieve that. And so we hung up the phone, and with no certainty at all, and this goal in my mind that I had no other choice but to achieve. um, every day I was striving towards that. But as I mentioned to you, part of this process was when I hung up the phone, I just imagined myself working there and what that feeling would be like, and what skills I would need to really hone in on in order to pursue that opportunity. And when I really understood that, and it took me some time to really, fully develop what that would be. But when I understood that, I said to myself, okay, now I need to take action, things that I can control in order to work towards that goal. Um, and there was a lot of things I could not control in this situation. I couldn't control the callback. I couldn't control the, getting the job at all. But I said, you know what? If I'm going to be ready for that point, it's going to be me knowing how to speak the language, me being prepared in merchandising, so having some type of merchandising background, and immersing myself into the culture, into the Italian culture, which was, even though I lived here for a while, I didn't fully, you know, I wasn't fully immersed yet.
Yeah.
You're not really fully immersed until you're living in the place, also speaking the language and working in the language. So every day I made a plan, And so every day I did something towards that goal. And I had mentioned to you that first and foremost, what I did was I took a Gucci shopping bag and I put it in the center of my apartment, so that every morning that I woke up, I would see it. And every time I'd walk into the apartment, I would see it. And then I wrote sticky notes and I put them on my mirror in the bathroom. And I said, I'm going to learn Italian. I'm going to work at Gucci and I'm going to do very well there. And these little things that I did, it was really because not because I needed the reminder, but it's almost like subconsciously needed to train myself to believe I already had it because that was the way I was going to get it. And in my mind, again, there was no choice. There was no, there, one way or another, I was going to achieve it. I believed it, but I didn't say it out loud. And so every day I studied Italian. So I would go to Italian classes. I would read articles in Italian and in English. And what I would do is I would translate it from one language to the other. I would go to the coffee shop on the corner of my street where only Southern Italians from Sicily and Calabria used to go and work, and practice my Italian with them. And they didn't speak English, so it was great for me.
Yeah.
And I would watch Netflix only in Italian.
Mhm.
And so these little um, actions really, prepared me for the moment to come. And like I told you, with no guarantee that I would ever get that second phone call or that second interview, exactly 2 months later, I received that call back, and they had asked me, "Can you come to the office to have the interview in person?" And I said, "Sure." And deep down, I was shaking because I was thinking, okay, now is the real deal. And this is where, I'm going to be tested. And there's no, having notes in front of me and asking, Google Translate for help or anything. And so, but I was prepared. I was prepared in the best way I felt I could be given the circumstances. And I went into that interview and I remember it was with individuals who, two individuals from the collection merchandising team. And one of them was from the South. And they were speaking so fast. And they were speaking as though they were speaking to an Italian, like a native speaker from Italy. And I was freaking out, like literally shaking. And I said, you know what? I got to just try my best. Like, there's no point. Breathe. And slowly I started answering. And at some point, I almost geared to English to help me express myself fully, because you don't fully express yourself in a different language. When you're speaking your native language, you like it, your personality shines through a lot more. So it's almost like you got to do the double effort in order to shine through in that other language. And so, and I remember the girl interviewing me said, you know, don't speak in English. Like stick to your Italian. Like, and basically saying it in a way of like, even if you're not going to show me fully like your ability to like, if you're not going to show me to explain me all your skill sets in the best way possible in Italian, I'd rather you do it. And I think it was a test. And so I left that interview and I was destroyed. It was 2 hours. It was destroyed. And my mom had called me and she asked me, how did it go? And I told her, I said, I don't care if I fucking get this job or not at this point, because I put my blood, sweat,
Yeah.
and tears into this, that there was nothing more that I could do to get this opportunity. But there was a certain also relief in that moment, because you feel like you really did everything that, at some point you control what you can, but there's a lot that you can't control. And you have to understand that what you can control and what you do is enough.
Yeah.
So I felt very relieved that it was over and there was just going to be, waiting for the response, which was dreadful experience, like a period of waiting. And finally I got that call at 7 p.m. 2 weeks later. And by the way, 2 weeks before the expiry of my visa,
Oh,
which I had to renew.
right.
And yeah, and so I began working in their collection merchandising for women's shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that story. I think one really important part I would love for you to talk about is how you found the connection. This is kind of like the manifesting and finding things that pulled towards you with your trainer and how
Which trainer?
the boxing trainer.
Oh, how did I find sorry, I can you
It's
repeat?
okay. Wasn't there a trainer of yours that actually helped you and connected you and
Ah, so that was a funny so
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I forgot to mention that.
Mhm.
So I did Taekwondo for many years in my life in Montreal, back in Montreal, and one of my coaches was Italian, and so he actually moved to Italy a couple of years after he was coaching us, and he worked in many luxury brands. And so before going into an interview, I always do some research to understand what's happening. And so basically discovered that there is a connection between him and one of the people I would potentially be working with. And so, yeah. And so to me, that was a sign that, again, that you're in the right direction, you're in the right path.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to reach a certain goal and you see certain signs or things that are just it's such a small world. Like the coincidences that you find along the way are so powerful. So yeah,
I love it.
I
And I think what's so beautiful about your story is that you were so sure. Again, it was like this certainty within you and the faith within you that you're like, I'm going to get this, that you saw the outcome and then you just worked backwards, right? You're like, okay, well, now that
yeah.
I'm inspired, what are the actions, the inspired actions I need to take? What are the skill sets I need in order to get that job, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, I know you put a lot of energy and blood, sweat, and tears into it, but were you burnt out? Did it feel like it was overwhelming, or do you feel like you were always inspired or rejuvenated when you were doing it?
So I love that you're asking this, and I think it's key to to the idea that when you're striving for something that you want so bad and that you believe is meant for you at in some one way or another, it doesn't feel like the hard work is sacrifice, and it doesn't feel like it's tiring. It feels fueling. So every time I would go into my Italian classes, or I how many times I failed in like tests, in Italian tests, and just saying such ridiculous things. And I like, now today I look back and I think to myself, oh my God, I used to go to the coffee shop and tell them stories. I don't even think they freaking understood me. But
Yeah,
they supported me. They supported me because they saw that I wanted, and that I was passionate about something, and the passion was rooted on the fact that I had that goal, and that reminder was what was fueling me to take action in the different ways, which in the end was never tired. Like obviously it's tiring because it's effort, but it doesn't lead you to a burnout. It's not a
right,
negative tired,
right.
right?
And one thing I just wanted to highlight is that because you were so intentional and the goal you wanted was genuine for you, all the work that you did never felt exhausting, right? It always like it
Right.
just gave you more energy, right? Energy, people
Yeah.
always say, oh, I need to eat. No, 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 no. Energy comes from that burning desire within you, and you just at
Yeah.
whatever means it takes, you're gonna get it done. Another thing, what I really loved about your story is that sometimes people are like, okay, well, I shouldn't take action because I don't see every single step I need to take in order to get there. All you gotta do, like you said, big or small, take one step. Because when you take one step, you're gonna see all the other steps. We're gonna find another way to get there,
Mhm.
right? And I also feel like you're allowed to pivot. Sometimes people think like, oh,
100%.
I'm stuck on this route. Or I'm sorry, no, if it's not working, like you have to take the step, realize, okay, this step isn't working. You're allowed to backtrack. You're allowed to pivot. So, are there any stories? It doesn't have to be that specific Gucci story, but things where you're like, because you're so good about taking action, small or big, and then once you're there, you take a next step, and you're willing to pivot. You're willing to maneuver. Anything that you want to highlight about that?
So that's very interesting. And I definitely have a story in relation to that because you'll, it's okay. Like what's amazing about having a goal is that you're creating a direction of some sort. And so by taking small or bigger actions towards that, whatever that might be, you're still moving
Yes.
right? And I think that's the key. You want to make sure that your wheels are turning and they're constantly turning. Whether they're turning in the opposite way or forward, it doesn't really matter. You're moving because what's going to happen is that you're going to like with each action, you're going to have either positive or negative effects. But
Correct.
the idea is that if overall you're moving forward as opposed to moving back, then you're succeeding,
Yeah.
right? Three steps forward, one step back, you're still moving forward in the same direction.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so actually, I think there was another story I had mentioned to you, and it was, well, actually, you know what? Let's switch it up. I remember when basically a long time ago, I was organizing fashion conferences for in your university, and I had really wanted to get in touch with these founders of this luxury outerwear brand, and I had no connection to them whatsoever. And I started trying again where the manifesting comes in because I really had no idea where to start, no idea. But I said to myself, okay, they're founders of a very cool luxury brand. Where could I meet them? What type of setting? And when I meet them, like, what's the purpose? And I wanted to recruit them to come and speak at my conference. So I said to myself, okay, if I maybe hang out with older people and they go to certain clubs that are a little bit more older, that maybe I might fall on someone who knows them or
Yeah.
even them. And so, funny enough, I remember my older friends at the time, they were like 6 years older than me. I was super close to them. They had took me out to a club and I walked in and we're schmoozing with everyone. It was like early on in the night. And at one point, I turn around and I see one of the founders of the brand. And I'm like, is this a joke? And usually I do a lot of research to understand what it is my goal and like to really understand it 360. And so I recognized him because I had done that research. And so I saw him and I said, okay, this is my opportunity. And you can't say that this is like only luck. Because I don't believe in like
No.
in just luck. I think when you want something, you can attract it. We've spoken about that, about the energies and how important it is about mindset and having that energy to attract the goodness. And so and so I went up to him and I introduced myself and I said, look, I said, I would love to stay in touch. Actually have something I would love to speak to you about. Do you mind if I take your business card and your contact? I said, sure. And so he gave me his card and we stayed in touch. And soon after I started, reaching out with the potential of like actually asking him to come and speak at the conference. For 3 months, I was hustling, hustling him. And it wasn't working. And it wasn't working, but I wasn't going to give up. And so then he finally agreed. And I'm sure he agreed because to a certain extent he wanted to get rid of me.
Yeah.
But he agreed to come and speak at my conference. And the day before my conference, after I had already launched the presentation with the image of him, presenting him as a speaker, he had canceled on me because he had a work opportunity in Asia that he had to take care of. I was devastated and I understood that, all my actions towards this goal failed because in the end, I didn't even get hit. So what was it for? And so to your point of like it not always working, I said, okay, take it as a loss. Doesn't mean it's over. It just means that, this chapter is closed, right? And so a couple of months later, I was hosting another conference And I had him in mind because it was a perfect topic that I would of conversation I would have during that conference for him to come and touch upon. And I remember telling my family and friends that I was going to ask him to come and speak. And they said, you know what, just give up on it. You already tried for 3 months, it didn't work.
Yeah.
There's no point. And I said, no, no, no. I have this gut feeling that's telling me to do it. And so I sent him the email requesting him to come and speak at that conference. And he sent me back an email 2 days later and he said, I owe you. He
Mm.
goes, I'm happy to come and speak. And from that, the lesson to be learned is that he came to come in and spoke at my conference. And from then on, he said to me that for any conference that I have I invite him to, he will be happy to attend. Because this was not only a rewarding experience for him, but also I was able to introduce him to a professor at the university and for them to start working together for a course for
Mm.
university students. So the message here is don't give up and that it's totally okay to pivot. You can always have this one goal you're striving for. And like I said, it's a direction. But
Yeah.
if you need to pivot to get to another, um, to take actions that lead to something different, that
So be it.
it could be worth the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I love and I want people to take away from is you always trusted that gut inner feeling over anyone else's opinion. And I think that's the biggest thing that people really need to understand. It does not matter what other people think. It doesn't matter, right? It comes from
Yeah.
inside of you. You will stop at no end to get it done. And people don't realize, like, when people tell you, oh, like, give up or whatever, some of them genuinely mean well. Like, I'm sure your parents didn't want to see you so exhausted. I'm sure they cared about you, right? Only you know this burning desire within yourself. And I always tell people, so people like, coach, there's a reason why you have that desire. You're meant to do it. Don't worry about everyone else's opinion. They don't know what's in your heart. They don't know what's in your gut. That is yours, and it's
Yeah.
your job to express it. So I love that. Like, you just kept going no matter what. You pivoted. And then I want to talk a little about, you mentioned mindset too, right? We kind of
Mhm.
bond over how both our parents are immigrant families, first generation in Canada,
Yeah.
in the US. And of course, they had to give up everything, rebuild anew. And there's an element of work hard no matter what, power through, no excuses. Like, there's no time necessarily for mental health. Like, you just power through. Talk to me about how you kind of discover the importance of not just your physical health, but then your mental health, and how caring about those two elements actually made you better off and set you up further for success.
So that's interesting that you bring that up. It's such a relevant topic in my life. Before getting into that, I will say that us as women, we have an instinct and we need to follow it. I think that's one of our strengths that we have. And it's not something that we can always explain. But if we feel it, I urge you to capitalize on that because it means something. So back to the mental health and physical health or um, so it's a very relevant topic in my life because growing up in Montreal in Canada, we grow up with a certain North American mentality where you work hard and achieving your dreams is goes hand in hand with sacrifice and burnouts potentially, where it's a lot more common. Maybe in the past they didn't call it burnouts or they didn't call it something, but it's something that is so prevalent today. And you know, I'm not proud of it, but years ago I experienced that. And looking back today, I feel fortunate that I did because it kind of made me look at life in such a different way. And I started asking myself, how do I want to live my life?
Mhm.
Because I know I'm ambitious, I know I work hard, but what are my limits? What are my boundaries? And how do I do it in a way that is productive, right? And that is going to lead to positive results. um, internally, but also externally.
Yeah.
And so moving to Italy was a 360-degree contrast
Mhm.
from what I had been conditioned to learn, what I was born into, to a whole new life. In Italy, Italian, one thing that Italians have that are so special is that they appreciate the journey and the little moments. So when work finishes at 6, it means it finishes at 6. Yes, okay, occasionally you'll have those people who work extra hard, longer hours, fine. But the idea of, for example, not working on the weekends and having that time off to regenerate is very important. And I have never realized the importance until I got here, because those moments were the biggest boost for me to be productive during my work week. And so, for example, on the last weekend when I was feeling down, you know, normally I can just work through my feelings, dismiss the feelings and just try to produce results. But having taken a step back, going outside of my comfort zone that day to go to Tiffany's and landing on like the opportunity to meet you gave me such a boost that it launched me for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, when I look at this past week, because I like really reflected on it before this podcast, and I said to myself, okay, what was that one thing that kind of just ignited my motivation of the week
Yeah.
and my excitement and my energy? And it was that. So if you are not present in the moment, in how you feel and where you are, and try to suck in the energy around you, you might miss that opportunity that might actually propel you so far in your career or in your personal growth in different ways.
I could
So yeah.
could not agree more. And to your point about burnout, I when I was up to 25, I think it was 25, 26, I would literally sleep with my phone on my chest on ringer because I covered like Middle East, I covered
Um,
European clients. So when it went off, I would wake up at any time of the day. And I want to be fair, like none of my bosses expected that out of me. I was just super crazy Asian,
yeah.
super like I can do anything at any hour, like that kind of mindset. And
Yeah.
at 25 or 26, I forgot what it was, I got shingles. And that was when you, to your point, I wasn't listening to my body. I wasn't listening to my feelings. I was completely exhausted, burnt out like crazy. I would wake up super early, work out, then get on a train to go like an hour and a half away to where my office was. It wasn't in New York. And then I would like barely slept. I got shingles, and my doctor was like, Jess, people in their 50s and 60s get this. Like, you're half that age.
Wow.
You're on complete stress. Just like every time I see you, you're shaking. But I didn't feel it because I was numbing it, right? I didn't even know I was stressed out because that was my normal, right? To your point about thank God you burned out, thank God I got shingles. From that day on, I promised myself my health and my mind must come first because I can't have success. I can't have a career. I can't have anything without it. And it took me a little bit longer, but I used to pride myself on I can work through vacations. I can work through anything. I can
Yeah.
do whatever. Like I'm a superwoman. And then the rare times, I forgot, it was literally last year. It was the first time I went on vacation without a laptop. And to your point, I was present. I had so
Mm.
many more creative ideas. I came back not only refreshed, but like I was so much more productive. Vancouver
Yeah.
trip, right before I met you. I was literally debating. I was like, oh, like I kind of want to get stuff done. I feel like I should bring my laptop.
Yeah.
I have clients waiting over me. I don't want to be like a week or 2 weeks behind because I went to Vancouver, then Italy. I don't want to be 2 weeks behind. Something in me was like, Jess, have you not learned your lesson? Leave the
Wow.
laptop at home. Thank God, because I've met so many amazing people. Like I had so many creative ideas because I put it away and I was present. So I think some to your point about, I don't know if people also heard about the 888 rule. Like 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of like fun, family time, passions, whatever. And it's not always that balance per se.
Right.
The importance is there has to be balance.
Yeah, and to your point, I think that, we all have a different way to balance things, right? So I don't think that there's a defined way on how to balance in the like right way for everyone. I think it's dependent on who we are. I remember that a couple of years ago, one of my professors in university had mentioned to us, how many of you walk with your phone in your hands? And
Mhm.
we all lifted our hands, and she said, okay, well, the next time you walk to school, why don't you just put your phone in your pocket or in your bag and just walk around and appreciate your surroundings? Like, look where you are.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting that she said that. And she encouraged us to do it, not because we needed to disconnect only, but it was actually to remind ourselves that we need like that inspiration comes from the most basic things, right? And today we have so much information that is coming in our way, right? At such a fast pace that
Yeah.
we can't even process the information. We don't even have time. And then let alone reflect on the information, right? And so actually and that to me was realizing that I need to take a step back and just be in my thoughts, be present in the moment, understand how do I feel and like why do I feel this way? And then how to fix it, right? And sometimes we get criticized by men because we're too emotional or we feel too much. I'm not saying, be so emotional. I'm saying use this moment to be in touch with who you are because that is important. Emotions are important. It's not about discrediting them. It's about managing them in the right way,
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And then once you do, then you can be ready to encounter whatever it is.
I agree. I think the common to your point about men saying like, "Oh, we're so emotional." I think the common complaint is like when there's hysteria or there's freak out or like there's kind of our feelings are out of control, right? And don't get me wrong, we're going to have those moments, like men and women, we're going to have those moments. But I think to your point, if you don't feel your emotions and you don't let them process, you're going to have it built up and then you're really going to explode, right? So I think it's more
100%.
about letting yourself and just realizing like feelings come and go. Like you are not sadness. You are feeling sad, right? You are not
Yes.
an angry person. You're just feeling angry, right? Like stop
Yeah.
being like so attached to these momentary emotions or even events or like listen, it's life. Things are going to happen. You're going to have good things that happen to you. There's going to be some not so great things that happen to you. And the
Yeah.
not so great things is actually good. It's contrast. It's showing what you don't want. So you can take action towards what you do want. Like everything's happening for you. I really do believe that everything in our life happens for us, not to us. It's just
Yeah.
the meaning and how you want to perceive the events that
I,
affect you.
I love that. And that was something that you said last week that really resonated with me. It's that it's not that you are a depressed person.
Correct.
It's you are feeling depressed. And I
Correct.
think that's super important to distinguish because it's not who you are, it's what you feel.
Correct.
And it's okay to feel that way.
If anything,
But no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
for not every man, but for the men out there who like, oh, like don't be so emotional, be more whatever. They're the ones that actually go through genuine depression and not so healthy mental or physical thoughts. And it's very sad, but like some of the men, as we know in certain industries after COVID, have taken their own life, right? Because it's a buildup of those emotions, right? So it's more about processing, feeling it, and like stop making your identity about that one emotion. It's temporary.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And the more focus you place on negativity, the more energy you're wasting and putting into something that has no meaning to you,
Yeah,
or it's just not effective.
not
So
effective.
may as well. That's why, and again, like what we were talking about last week, it's all about mindset.
Yeah,
If you have the right mindset and you really like ingrain that in you, which it's a muscle that you have to build, right? It doesn't come overnight. So
No,
like exercising, you don't build your strength in one session. It takes consistency. So once you have that ability to strengthen that muscle, use it, because then that's what's going to help you manifest everything that you want in your life. And then from there, when you have that idea as to what you want, even if it sounds super ridiculous, you can take those small actions, those inspired actions that will lead you to it, to that achievement,
100%.
right?
Kiana, I love your spirit. I know people are going to learn so much from this. And I always wrap up with, I believe every single person has a gift that
I
when
love
you
that.
use it and you unlock it, like you're going to help humanity, you're going to inspire, you're going to elevate our consciousness. So what would you say your unique gift is?
Um, I would definitely say that I'm a powerful manifester. I would say that
Love
is
it.
definitely
She's
something
using the
that
term. I
is,
love it.
yes, I would definitely say, and again, I want to be clear that manifesting is not just like sitting and dreaming about something, right? I want to be clear on that, because it's really about having a goal, something that you're truly passionate about, and imagining what it would be like and how you would feel attaining that, right? And when you understand those specifics, then find a way to bring it into your life today. Because if you feel that way today, you're already preparing yourself for that moment of when you have it, right? So it's not completely spiritual, but it's also actionable.
Yes,
And I think that's where I want to be very clear, because it is action that I took to achieving the goals that I want, that I set.
100%.
But I but it was a manifestation that kind of led or created the momentum,
Yes,
right?
I love it. Thank you so much, Kiana. This was
Thank
amazing.
you. I'm very glad we got to do this, but I'm honored to have met you. So
Oh,
thank you for
girl.
this opportunity.
Yes. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'll be back. You'll see me. You'll see when
Amazing.
I'm done.
Okay, we're waiting for you. We need to make our
Yes.
energy here.
I love it. I'll see you soon, my love. Bye,
Ciao.
Kiana.